our Total Access mock draft, picks 11 through 20, and we're wrapping up our roster reset series, looking at the NFC from a big picture perspective. Super Bowl champs James Jones and Michael Robinson will join us shortly, but first, we start in Houston as Texans GM Nick Caserio held his pre-draft press conference today, sidestepping most questions regarding Deshaun Watson, and his superstar quarterback remains the subject of multiple sexual misconduct allegations.
I would say I really don't have any comment. I know Cal and ownership put a letter out a few weeks ago just relative to the organizational stance relative to where we are. So I don't have anything to add other than it's a legal process. We're respectful of the legal process and where that is. So we're focused on today. We're focused on getting ready for the offseason program and getting ready for the draft. So that's where our focus is.
A lot of talk about the process, a lot of talk about focus. For more now on Caserio's comments, let's bring in our NFL Network insider, Ian Rappaport, as well as Steve Wyche. Ian, we'll start with you. Where do the Texans go now from here as far as Deshaun Watson goes?
Well, anytime a general manager of a team with this many questions speaks, it's noteworthy. Also noteworthy that Nick Caserio really did not make any big conclusions, really didn't make any news at all during his pre-draft press conference, which means the Houston Texans are exactly, Steve, where they have been. Not taking trade calls for Deshaun Watson, although from what I understand, there is still some interest in potentially doing this. Time is running out to do it before the drafts, at least. No deadline for resolution in the Watson situation. And important to remember, Watson has also requested a trade from the Texans and has no plans to report there anytime soon. And of course, the quarterback is still facing 22 lawsuits with allegation of unwanted sexual advances, the allegations which his legal team has denied. So what the Texans have done, Steve, is focus on building this team, controlling what they can control, working on the draft, and we know they've added a ton of free agents.
100%, Ian. What they're doing with David Culley, and we heard Nick Caserio, is they're building a cocoon around the football operations. And as far as Caserio was concerned, that's talking about what the scouting department and the coaches are doing leading up to the draft. Now, in covering some teams that have had players involved in legal situations, Caserio really can't say much because the legal teams, the other lawyers that the team uses will tell them to behave as if they're being read their Miranda rights. So anything they say can and would be used against them in any type of court, even the one in public opinion. So that is why Caserio respectively told a lot of different reporters who asked a lot of really good questions that he cannot really focus on the Deshaun Watson situation. Ian, in a 30-minute news conference, he didn't even mention Deshaun Watson by name.
Yeah, still a lot more questions than we have answers at this point. Thank you both. We'll continue to monitor this story as it unfolds. Meanwhile, preparations underway in Cleveland as the city gets ready to host the 2021 NFL Draft. 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be starting day number 2, and we'll be welcoming a new rookie class to the NFL. It all kicks off Thursday, April 29th at 8 o'clock Eastern right here on NFL Network. Bill Belichick celebrating his 69th birthday today and would love to find a gift in the draft. Would love to hear Rob Gronkowski's message to him, or if you'll hear from Tom Brady, who was drafted on Bill Belichick's 48th birthday. Has to be his best football-related birthday gift of all time. So that means it's also the 21st anniversary of Tom Brady's legendary 6th-round selection in the 2000 draft. As Brady tweeted earlier today, his draft status can now have a legal drink. For more now on what sort of gift Bill Belichick could get in this year's draft, let's bring in our Super Bowl champions, Michael Robinson and James Jones. And Rob, we'll start with you. For seemingly the coach who has everything, what can Bill Belichick get in this year's draft for a birthday gift?
Oh, okay, so I think this is hypothetically speaking here, because I don't think this player will fall down to number 15. But if Justin Fields can fall down to 15 and New England can possibly get their next quarterback, James, for the next 20 years. That's how high I feel about Justin Fields. And there's two types of quarterbacks that's given Bill Belichick issues over his career. Number one, quarterbacks with movement skills like Justin Fields, like you're seeing on the screen. Kid had over 1,000 yards rushing and 19 touchdowns in his collegiate career. And James, this is the other factor. Guys that that work well when it's unpredictable, right? When you can't scheme up a defense to stop them. Justin Fields throw for over 5,000 yards in his collegiate career, man. One of the best deep ball throwers in the college football game. This kid would give Bill Belichick issues. That's why I think if there was a perfect birthday gift to fall to him in the draft, it'd have to be that kid, the two-time Big Ten MVP in Justin Fields.
That would be a very good birthday gift, Mike Rob, and that is hypothetically speaking, because I don't think he's going to be there neither. And I do believe that we're both believers in Super Cam, too. So with that being said, Justin Fields is gone. Who is going to fall in his lap for a very good birthday gift? Jalen Waddle, the receiver from Alabama. You just lost one of the best slot receivers to ever do it in Julian Edelman. Well, let me tell you something. This kid right here is more explosive and much better with the ball in his hands than Julian Edelman. You have two tight ends that you brought in the offseason, and then you get Cam Newton, the slot receiver that could do it all. His stop-and-go ability is unmatched, the best in the draft, 0 to 100 real quick. And if you got that at the receiver spot, you are tough to guard. And Bill Belichick in Josh McDaniels' system where you can hand it off to him, you can put him in the backfield, you can get fancy, tricky, whatever you want to call it. I think this will be the perfect birthday gift for Bill Belichick.
Man, a souped-up Julian Edelman. That's saying something there, James. Thank you both. Both just hold tight for just a second. Of course, the Patriots missed the playoffs last year. Belichick trying to get back into the postseason without Tom Brady at the helm for the first time since 1994. Let's move it to the NFC East, where Washington had a busy free agency period. They landed Ryan Fitzpatrick, Curtis Samuel, and former Bengals corner William Jackson. The football team holding the 19th pick in the draft, and Ron Rivera is saying that what they did in free agency provides them a little more clarity in their best player available versus need draft evaluation.
I think what our front office did and what we were able to do in free agency really helped us. I think, you know, Martin and Marty and their guys really helped put us in position where, you know, going back to the very first question that Martin answered, hey, you know, we got to really look at drafting best player available but always keeping in mind what we think that the true need is. But I think we freed ourselves up because of what they did.
So according to Daniel Jeremiah's Mock Draft 3.0, here's where the NFC East teams are selecting. Kwity Paye there going to the Cowboys, Devontae Smith to the Giants, Patrick Surtain out of Alabama going to the Eagles, and Elijah Vera Tucker there, the offensive lineman out of USC, going to Washington. But all of these teams had losing records in 2020. So we want to know which team has the most pressure to turn their season around in 2021. For more on this discussion, we welcome in our draft expert, Lance Zierlein. But James, we'll start with you. In this glamour division, which team has the most pressure to turn it around?
I think the most pressure is on Ron Rivera and the Washington football team. This is the team who won the division last year, and you cannot go from first to worst. So I think all the pressure is on this Washington football team to get a good draft pick. You got a very good defense. I would add to that defense, get you a middle linebacker in that defense to go with those two very good edge rushers. But the pressure is on this Washington football team. The Dallas Cowboys had a bad season last year. Philly had a bad season last year. I know all these teams didn't have winning records, but the Washington football team won a division. You cannot go from first to worst. I think all the pressure's on Ron Rivera.
I think if you're talking about pressure in the first round specifically, you have to take a look right now at the Philadelphia Eagles. To me, I mean, it seems like every time a team gets to the Super Bowl, right, you have, whether it's a win or a loss, there's expectations. And we saw the Falcons could never meet that. And every year we talked about how talented they were. And we've seen the same thing with the Eagles, even though they won it. Well, now you look at the first round, and you've got these great wide receivers that are going to be there at 6. Potentially Justin Fields or Trey Lance could be there at number 6. Well, you traded out of 6. So now that you traded backwards, the pressure in the first round means you're going to have to hit this pick. Now, what do you do with that first pick now that you've traded back? Are you going to look at defense? Because you had 8 interceptions last year, one of the worst numbers in the league. You were 19th in offense, total offense, 24th in defense. I mean, this is a big problem for them. They have to hit on their first round pick now, and they traded out of one of the golden spots inside that top 8, which is where there's so much talent that you guys have been hitting on. So I think they have a lot of pressure on them right now in the first round.
Well, guys, I'm going to go to another team in the NFC East, the New York Giants, right? You guys talk about first-round picks and the pressure of first-round picks, and I think it all is epitomized in their quarterback in Daniel Jones. And, yes, I know there are people out there that think, hey, Daniel Jones, he has to come around, and I'm one of those guys. I think he has to show something this year, especially going into year 3. But I just think he has to eliminate the bad plays, right? Like, if you eliminate the bad plays, I think this offense and this team could be in a lot better situations. You have Saquon Barkley coming back. That should be a boost to that offense. But you can't give them the ball every single play. Teams are going to be loaded up to stop Saquon Barkley. You got Kenny Golladay. You got John Ross. I mean, Kyle Rudolph is there as well. All the pressure, in my opinion, is on the New York Giants and on Daniel Jones to make sure this year 3 is something that everybody can remember in a positive way.
For as much as we talk about
Draft. So, Judy, the Buccaneers, I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, here's the amazing thing. That video that we just showed, we could just use that video again next year because it's going to be all the same guys in the video. Remarkable offseason for the Bucs already. They are bringing back all 22 starters from the Super Bowl winning team, plus they just signed Giovanni Bernard. To me, this makes them clearly the team to beat in the NFC. Nobody could beat them at the end of last season. After a shaky start, this was a team that was really ascending even as the season ended. Certainly on offense, the defense was solid all year. But after week 14, remember, nobody could hold them under 30 points. So I think they have had a tremendous offseason. Doesn't even matter what they do in the draft at this point. Bringing all these guys back, keeping the band together, and going for it again. The future is now in the NFL. When you have a quarterback like Tom Brady, keep your foot on the gas and try to win more than one.
Judy, the roster didn't change, but seasons do. Mike Silver, you buying the Bucs are the team to beat in 2021, the NFC?
Well, a lot of us wish this last year had never happened, and I'd like to pretend that it didn't for a second, because if you go back to the previous Super Bowl, you had a 49ers team that was flat out loaded. Now, they had brutal injury issues last season, losing Starr and Nick Bosa. George Kittle was out for much of the year, and obviously quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, among others. I think they're going to come back strong. You saw the bold move to trade up for the number 3 pick. They're going to get a quarterback of Kyle Shanahan's choosing, and you're going to have, a lot of difference makers out there on that field. Now, Steve, you heard me earlier today talk about the Texans and their complete absence of cornerstone players. Think how many the 49ers have. Bosa, Kittle, Fred Warner among them, just absolute game changers. They think Brandon Ayuk can be one going into year 2. So I think, Judy, as good as the Bucs look on paper, Tom Brady can't do it forever, can he? I'm calling the Niners as the team to beat in 2021.
Ooh, let's not forget about Trent Williams is one of those cornerstones, too, a player that they paid to return. Guys, I'm not talking about necessarily a team to beat in the NFC, but I'm taking, Mike, you talked about how the Niners made the draft real intriguing by trading up from 12 to 3. Here's a team you're starting to hear about who could get involved in kind of a similar move. That is the Dallas Cowboys. They're at pick 10. They have got 10 picks, and it is widely known that they love Kyle Pitts. Would they come up to 4, 5, or 6 to get the Florida tight end to really enhance that offense? Mike, you and I have had this conversation with Mike McCarthy before when the Packers are rolling. When they had Jermichael Finley, their multi-purpose tight end, he said that is when their offense functioned at its most dangerous. Imagine that with the wide receivers that they have. But also, let's come back to reality. They need defense. They probably are going to stay at 10 and take someone like Michigan edge rusher Kwity Paye, who kind of fills that Michael Bennett role. Of course, Dan Quinn, the new defensive coordinator, Coach Bennett in Seattle, but also at corner, Patrick Surtain, 6'2", 205. He is the prototypical Dan Quinn corner. Those are 2 positions of significant need with the Cowboys. Will Jerry Jones get that itchy trigger finger and make a move in the top 5 of the draft? Omar, something to ponder. Oh, hold up, Mike Silver, you got something?
I mean, I'm glad you brought up the Cowboys, Steve, because I know you and I often get concerned that we ignore them on this network. And so, but But you're right. They're in a really sexy draft position because of those impact defensive players. And I think it speaks to what Judy said earlier. Jerry Jones isn't playing around. He gave Dak Prescott the money. He's all in. They're trying to win now. I can think of one other NFC team that did really, really well last year that doesn't have that same mentality, and it frustrates me.
I don't know who you could be talking about, Michael.
Yeah, you never talk about that team with a G on the side of the helmet, right? All right, we're done.
All right, thank you, Steve, Judy, Mike. Speaking of those Cowboys, here's a list of the quarterbacks drafted ahead of Dak Prescott in the 2016 draft. Dak's passer rating better than all the other 7, so too now his paycheck, although quarterbacks Jared Goff and Carson Wentz not too bad in that department either. Let's welcome back Lance Zierlein. Lance Zierlein. So with that in mind, the Cowboys found their future franchise quarterback in the 4th round. By now, we know all the big names expected to go in the 1st round of the draft. Who are some of the other quarterbacks taken outside of the 1st round that might end up being franchise quarterbacks?
Well, let me first say I missed on, I like to own it when I miss. And I missed on Dak Prescott. And sometimes you see that talent in the middle rounds. Now, here's the thing. In Tier 2, we know who the Tier 1 quarterbacks are. We know Kyle Trask is a pretty good Tier 2 quarterback in this draft. But let me tell you about a couple others who are really steaming up the board and could both go in the 2nd round. Let's start with Kellen Mond out of Texas A&M. Kellen Mond is a really interesting player. Reminds me a lot of Colin Kaepernick when he came out of Nevada. He's got the ability to get on the move with zone read. He can throw the ball effectively. He was a 4-year starter. He improved his touchdown to interception ratio to 6-1. And I think one of the big things that I think is really making teams feel more comfortable with Kellen Mond is that he showed the ability to manage the game from the pocket. He showed the ability to play with confidence once he had a quality pass protection and running game to really help him out there. So Kellen Mond is moving up the boards, and people need to know about him because he could be a guy who goes in the 2nd round. Now, the other guy is Davis Mills, and I think this is interesting. You look at Kellen Mond was the #1 dual threat quarterback in 17. This was the #1 quarterback coming out of high school in all of 2017. Davis Mills. Here we are in 2021 draft, and he only had 11 starts thanks to injuries and to COVID. 11 total starts. But he's 6'4", close to 220 pounds. He's got a buttery smooth release. He throws very effortlessly. You see the physical talent. You see the passing talent. He just hasn't played that much football. We know he has talent. He was highly rated coming out. But this is one of the reasons why teams see in him a potential unpolished gem at the quarterback position. So these two guys, two very different types of players, two very different ways of getting here, pathways to this position, Omar. But they're two guys you really need to know from that 2nd-tier quarterbacks.
Lance, I flipped on our Stanford Pro Day coverage a couple weeks ago, and Davis Mills, the way he so accurately and effortlessly, like you mentioned, threw the ball with time. Picks 11 through 20. Lance, you're on the clock with the New York Giants at number 11.
I got to show respect to the big boys. I got to. I mean, I rep them with the Joe Moore Offensive Line Award, so I got to stay with Rashawn Slater, one of my favorite guys that I studied. And I'm going to stick him to the Giants, and here's why. The Giants have issues at the center position. At right guard, they have a new right guard, but I think Rashawn Slater can be better. He can play right tackle. He can play left tackle. So no matter what you want to do with Andrew Thomas, you want to keep it in left, you want to move him back to right where he played at Georgia as well, this guy gives you a lot of fluidity along that offensive line. He's strong, he can get push, he's got the ability to play with a good, strong base against bull rushers, and I think what he gives you is a game-ready player right now, and that's something that, as we talked about earlier, Daniel Jones needs some help.
We know those big-name corners, their dads played in the NFL. How about Rashawn Slater's dad played in the NBA? How's that for athletic genes? M-Rob, you're on the clock, number 12 with the Eagles.
Yes, I think the Eagles go up to the Big Ten and they get pass rusher Kwity Paye out of Michigan. This dude definitely knows how to get after the quarterback. And I think he has a lot of position flexibility, too. 6'4", 272 pounds. I think on passing downs, he has the ability to move in to the defensive tackle. Guy uses his arms like nobody else in this draft. And Lance, I also think he has the ability to stand up at the defensive end position, possibly drop. He's very, very athletic. Brandon Graham is getting a little older in the tooth there, so this guy can be kind of a backup to Brandon Graham and kind of learn how to rush the quarterback. But I think right now he can step in on sub situations and get after the quarterback and make some big-time plays for the Philadelphia Eagles.
You're talking about being a speed rusher. Paye was once part of a 4x100 state championship track team. Up next, the Chargers on the clock at number 13. James Jones, what say you?
As bad as I want to take another skill position, you have to protect the franchise. Christian Darrisaw, Virginia Tech. You have to find a way to protect Justin Herbert. We seen what Justin Herbert did last year. Phenomenal. Get this guy in the building, protect the franchise, give him more time to get the ball out to those shiny weapons he has out there in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And I believe that this pick right here to the Chargers is a very good fit. Keep Justin Herbert standing up, throwing that ball all over the yard.
Adding to an already improved Chargers offensive line with Corey Linsley. Vikings up next, number 14, Lance.
If you heard that noise, that's the Vikings sprinting the card up to the commissioner because they're taking Trey Lance. Look, with all due respect to the quarterback position right now, and Kirk Cousins, I mean, they're stuck in neutral right now. They're playing an oatmeal. So you've got to move it forward and get a quarterback with a little more juice. Now, he's not ready just yet, but that's perfect. Kirk Cousins can show him the ropes, and then you can have the young buck step in. He's got a lot of talent, and it just needs to be developed right now with a little bit more time, experience in camp, and he'll be ready to go. We're going to be okay at the quarterback position in Minnesota.
So Lance stays in his home state of Minnesota. Up next at 15, the Patriots, M-Rob.
Yeah, the Patriots. Lance, man, you almost let him drop to us, man. But you know what? I'm going to go ahead linebacker Micah Parsons out of Penn State. No, I'm not just saying that because he's out of Penn State. This dude is a baller, sub 440, knows how to tackle. He's a sure tackler. And we always hear, when this guy's motivated, man, this guy is a baller. You put him in the middle of your defense, he can go sideline to sideline, and he also has pass rushing ability, rushing the passer from the middle of that pocket, getting anybody off the spot. I like this pick of versatility for Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots.
Last time Patriots picked this high, Gerard Mayo, another linebacker, worked out pretty well for them. At 16, the Cardinals are on the clock. James, what say you?
Oh, man, this is easy for me right here. You have to get a guy that can cover, and that is J.C. Horn. You have to go get a guy to cover these receivers that are in this division. You have the Robert Woods, the Cooper Kupps, the DK Metcalfs. You have these guys that you have to find a way to cover, and you let Patrick Peterson get out of there to the Minnesota Vikings. You have to fill his spot. I think this is the kid right here that'll get the job done for the Arizona Cardinals. J.C. Horn, I'm looking at him being in that Arizona Cardinals uniform.
James handing out blessings. Horn saying it would be a dream to play for the Arizona Cardinals. Lance, Raiders up next at 17.
Man, James is killing this mock draft. I'm going to go right here with Christian Barmore. He's the best defensive tackle in the draft. It's not a great defensive tackle draft, but he can play the run. He can play the pass. He's good at attacking the pocket from edge to edge. And when it comes to playing the run, every Alabama defensive lineman's great with his hands, the old stack and shed. And I think when you look at what the Raiders need right now, which we always talk about getting something up the middle and stopping the run and just getting better fundamentally, this is a great pick to do that, a good two-way defensive tackle.
So Gus Bradley's first pick as defensive coordinator for the Raiders, strong up the middle. We already saw the Dolphins with number 6 get Devontae Smith. Do they get another weapon for Tua, M-Rob?
Yes, they do get another weapon for Tua. They go down to Florida and get Kadarius Toney, wide receiver out of Florida. This kid is electric. He has that da-da, James. You know what I'm saying? That stop and go slot receiver, 70 receptions for almost 1,000 yards. He got some attitude with it, too. He is a strong runner when he has the ball in his hands. He reminds me of a little bit more explosive Peter Warrick. Everybody knows who I'm talking about, ex-Florida State guy from the early 2000s. That's what this kid reminds me of.
Love Peter Warrick. Hey, Washington's up next at 19, James.
Listen, let's that front seven. Let's make sure we get that front seven ready to rock. Listen, Nick Bolton, I'm taking him, putting him in the middle of that defense out of Missouri. Yeah. You already got them big boys up front that you ain't even gonna have to take on no blocks. You coming downhill, making all the tackles, clean hits on these running backs and these receivers coming across the middle. I love this pick right here for the Washington football team.
Middle linebacker for Ron Rivera in his second draft. Second draft with Carolina, picked up an inside linebacker named Luke Kuechly. Okay, the Bears at 20. Lance, finish this off.
I was checking my notes. Best available, position of need. Let's go with Greg Newsome. He's a tall, rangy cornerback with great speed. He's an absolute dog as a man-covered corner.
Strong hands, go up, attack the ball, the 50-50 balls. It is mine. I am going to make the play for my quarterback, and that is why everybody has him up there so high as their #1 receiver. And he reminds me so much of my man in Charger land, Keenan Allen.
That's a heck of a comparison. He's certainly separated himself from the rest of the pack there at the receiver group. And Lance, we know about Waddle, we know about Smith, but who's this year's Chase Claypool or even T. Higgins, guys that went in day 2 that have a chance to make tremendous impact immediately in the NFL?
I'll start with, all these guys. I think all 3 of these guys are potentially day 3 players, and I think they could all become factors in the NFL. Let's start with Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer played at Tennessee, and I really love watching him play. His game is so nice. You can see him right there, the adjustment down the field for a touchdown over DJ Daniel, and then you'll see him right here beat. That happens to be Pat Surtain. That's pretty good. So I love the fact that he can play the ball on all 3 levels, is a very instinctive pass catcher. Austin Watkins, if you want to talk about a big physical wide receiver who can play, thank you. A possession receiver underneath who knows how to be dependable, reliable, physical, and tough. This is my man right here, and I really love watching his game because he brings it to you every single snap. Kawan Baker. This player made me call people around the league and say, have you seen the South Alabama kid? Because Kawan Baker is a wide receiver with running back speed, and I mean blazing speed. He had a 1.49 10-yard split in his 40-yard dash. So what you're talking about is a guy with unbelievable acceleration, and this is the kind of player that you want in the 5th or 6th round.
Following that South Alabama, and I loved Andre Reed. Well, we're wrapping up our roster reset series, focusing on the NFC. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, 2-time runners-up. Dak coming back. Kyler Murray, Jimmy Garoppolo out west trying to get their teams back into the postseason. Mark Sessler wrote a fantastic article about it. Check it out at NFL.com/roster reset. And speaking of Mark, he joins us now along with M-Rob to dive deeper into the NFC big picture. Now, Mark, you had each team broken down into different categories. Which team do you consider to highlight for playoffs or bust next season?
Well, I'll go with the Niners. I think they could have been a playoff team last year if it wasn't the same old story of Jimmy Garoppolo's durability issues. He's missed 23 games over the last 3 years. You're in a division where Russell Wilson hasn't missed a game in his entire career. M-Rob knows that. And so you're also in a division where the Rams upgraded to Matthew Stafford. So I can understand why they made this big move to get up to number 3. And in some form or another, they're going to get a full 16-game starter situation. I think Jimmy G would agree to it because he's not making $26 million somewhere else. So the Niners, to me, are a playoff team.
Well, you know what, Mark? You know what? I tend to agree with that. I'm going to stay in the NFC West, and I'm going to say the Arizona Cardinals, man. I mean, they have to be postseason or bust, right? I mean, just look at their roster. I mean, you have A.J. Green on this roster, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, Rodney Hudson, who was an all-pro at center, and then the offensive rookie of the year in Kyler Murray. How can't this offense be amazing? And then on defense, you bring in a J.J. Watt to pair along with Chandler Jones. This team should be in the playoffs. If they're not, I'm going to be highly disappointed in what Cliff Kingsbury has done out there in the desert.
Yeah, year 3 for Kyler and Cliff. They haven't made the playoffs since 2015. Okay, Mark, which team is a playoff contender?
Well, I fall for this all the time, but I'm going to go with the Cowboys based on the division they're in. And, I know it's like I can't get the Dak Prescott press conference out of my head where it's a 2-hour-long affair and we're panning over to 5 Lombardi trophies from, 25 years ago. But I would say this, like Dak Prescott threw for almost 1,900 yards in 5 games. They have a top 5 passing attack. And if Dan Quinn, who I really believe in, can come in and patch up that defense, I think you can win that division. And I think the Cowboys have the most talent of all the 4 teams.
I like the Cowboys too, Mark, but I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Rams. Yes, I mean, they still have Aaron Donald, I think, right? And he's the best defensive player, if not the best player in all of football. And I think the addition of Matthew Stafford takes this offense to another level. It's really what Kyle Shanahan is looking at, and his offense is all the Mike Shanahan type of offense, right? I think Matthew Stafford takes his offense to another level. I mean, his arm talent, the way he pushes the ball down the football field. I don't think this offense or this team has seen anything like that out there with the Los Angeles Rams. So I got the Rams being a team that, they're going to be a playoff contender.
Yeah, hosting the Super Bowl, making that Matthew Stafford trade. Seems to me that they're Super Bowl or bust. Mark, what team are you highlighting that's a work in progress?
Well, I'd go Detroit Lions, and I know that they've been a raging snooze fest for like 1,000 generations, but I actually really like what Brad Holmes, the new GM, has done. I mean, you got the most value you could for Stafford. They've acknowledged the rebuilding, and you look at. I understand you have Jared Goff, who to me is sort of like a bowl of vanilla ice cream. He fits that offense, which is going to struggle this year. But I would not be shocked if they took a quarterback at number 7. If one falls to him, that could happen.
Yeah, I like the Carolina Panthers as a work in progress. I love what Matt Rule is trying to build out there in Carolina. Hopefully, Joe Brady can get the most out of their new quarterback that just got down there. Hold up, let me mess up. Sam Darnold. Sorry, I won't mess up his name. But they have the weapons there. You got Jeremy Chin on the defensive side of the football along with Brian Burns. I think they're going to be a team to watch in the NFC South.
Thank you both. Raging snooze fest. The only commentary you can get from Mark Sessler. For his full article, be sure once again to check out NFL.com/roster reset. According to many experts, the huge fan of the quiz show turned in an all-pro-like performance the last 2 weeks hosting the show. And in honor of Roger's run at Jeopardy, we're going to play our own little version of Jeopardy tonight. I'm going to give each of our contestants here a clue, and they have to give the correct response in the form of a question. Lance, you're on the board first. This team will trade up and draft a quarterback at number 4 overall.
Well, I'm going to go.
Come on, man.
You didn't do your buzzer. You didn't do your buzzer.
Who are the New England Patriots? See, I'm glad these guys didn't know the answer to that one. It's who are the New England Patriots? They're the ones who are going to trade up, and they're the ones who are going to come get Justin Fields. Listen, Justin Fields is a dynamic quarterback. He is that dual-threat quarterback. He's tough. He's experienced. And you don't spend all this money in the offseason to not at least address the quarterback position if you're the Patriots. Who are the Patriots? That's the right answer.
And, Rob, you've got control of the board. This many running backs will be taken in the first round.
Oh, don't do me like that. I'll say, what is 0? And I'm so sorry to say that, running backs. And it's really because of all the quarterbacks that's going to push everybody else down, man. But look, fans, that's a huge treat, right? Because you have Friday to tune in to watch guys like Najee Harris get into the National Football League because, I'm just sorry that all these quarterbacks got to go first. Sorry, guys.
Just one running back in the first round last year. James, we'll finish off with you. This player will be drafted in the first round and go on to win Rookie of the Year.
Who is Kyle Pitts? Listen, I believe he's going to the Atlanta Falcons. They are not going to trade that pick. He is going with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, and he is going to be not the MVP, the Rookie of the Year. The first tight end since Mike Ditka 50 years ago. Woo! Kyle Pitts, Rookie of the Year.
Time now for Final Jeopardy. The clue, this show is over. What is Total Access? Everybody have a great week. And for Lance, Rob, James Jones, see you next week.
It is Friday on Path to the Draft, and we're sending you into the weekend with Charles Davis's brand new mock draft. Where